Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live, a quarantine Instagram Live. That's what I'm doing today. I'm looking forward to getting some sun when we are able to go outside. That will be nice. Now, let's have a look at some OCD related questions today. So is there any specific questions that anyone would like to ask in relation to OCD that they would like to get covered today? And I will cover those on here. Because last time I spoke just about coronavirus, and I don't want to speak about coronavirus today. I think I'm going to have a day off speaking about coronavirus. Well, not really a day off because I speak about it all the time on social media, but on here today, on Instagram Live. Any questions in relation to anything? Well, you can ask questions about coronavirus. I'm just not going to bring up any points about it myself. So anything you want to ask, I'm happy to answer. What's the difference between positive affirmation and exposing to your thoughts? Well, positive affirmation is propping yourself up with these sort of ideas like just sort of positive phrases that we say to ourselves. I'm not a fan of positive affirmations at all. I think we should be looking at sort of rational statements of reality, but then not used to prop ourselves up continually throughout the time. I think that becomes a problem. That becomes part of the cycle. And let's have a look here. Did I ever experience harm OCD towards others? Absolutely, that was one of my main ones, harm OCD. OCD therapy has pushed me so hard that I am now dealing with derealization. Any tips for that? Derealization is a situation where you're just feeling anxious symptoms that have sort of come into that position of feeling like that sort of state you're in. But that derealization is just an anxiety symptom where you've got to get used to wearing that like an uncomfortable coat, not trying to get rid of that, just feeling it. It's the same as like, for example, I just had a workout and say my muscles might ache after a workout. I'm not terrified that they're going to ache forever because I know that they do tend to go down in terms of the pain after a few days. But if I hadn't experienced that, I might think, oh my God, what if I'm stuck like this for forever? And that could be something that would concern somebody. Do you hear a lot of cases of joint cracking OCD? Can you mean you're talking about in the compulsion of cracking joints? Those are all sort of similarly related. There are compulsions that need reducing. Rob, thank you for continuing to speak the truth despite the negative comments. That's what I have to do. If I didn't tweet things or post things because of negative comments, I wouldn't post bloody anything. Because people in the comments, there'll always be things like somebody writing a long post, then I put the reason why I don't believe that's valid, and then they'll say it just is, and that can go on for infinity. And then that usually follows by that person then writing amen to every comment where somebody else has written a post with very limited factual evidence in whatsoever. So you've got a whole cycle of just propping one bad argument up of another. So I don't really pay too much attention to that. I just try and get across the message which I'm trying to deliver at that time. Having such bad existential panic attacks, thinking, how does the universe exist? It's unfathomable. You're not going to work out why the universe is nothing rather than nothing is a question that has stumped scientists since the beginning. So you're not going to be able to work that out. It's about getting used to, getting comfortable with not knowing the answer, getting comfortable with not knowing, with the uncertainty and realizing you're okay with that. That's the key. Definitely trying to work out and get a scientific answer to these things, you're not going to be able to do that. That will not bring relief. It feels like that's the way to relief, but it isn't the way to relief. It feels like it, but it actually isn't. If you aren't afraid of the virus, why are you saying things to reassure yourself? Well, I'm certainly not afraid of the virus, as you can probably tell, because if I was afraid, I'd look a lot more concerned than this. I actually can't tell much difference between my day-to-day life and internal feelings, whether there's a virus or not. It's irrelevant to me. Even if the death rate was higher, say it was a lot higher, I would be concerned, but I wouldn't be panicked because there'd be little I could do about it. And I would just have to roll with it, the same as people who lived through the war. People living through the war didn't know if a bomb was going to come through and kill their daughter in the bedroom next door. And they still lived with that. As horrible as that sounds, that's the reality that people live with. So through acceptance, you can learn to live with that. Now, why do I post stats to keep pointing out that the low risk? Well, because people are obviously very concerned and the media overhypes things the other way. So I think it's important to get an idea. I'm not going to just bang on with ideas about learning to accept death at a time like this, which I do. If you look in my tweets, I do include that, but I don't go to an extent of just going on about that all the time. So I thought it's important to break down the stats to give people an idea of what they're dealing with. I would like to know about combining therapy and meds. Do meds take the power off therapy? No, they can make they work in comparison, but often if they're sort of pushing away a feeling that you're scared of feeling, then it can at that point. So by reducing meds to bring them back in when you're more stable is often a plan that is introduced. I feel like if I accept the thoughts, then they'll come true. Like if I accept, you need to accept and allow in any thought. Anything you're trying to force away and not allow is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So you've got to accept that. If you try and force away anything, the counter is going to happen. It's going to push back. So we definitely don't want to be going down that route of trying to force away things all the time, because exactly the opposite happens. The same as the old pink elephant thing. If you're scared of thinking of a pink elephant comes flying in. Is it possible to live without medication one day? I imagine so, absolutely, but it depends on how you do with your changing your irrational beliefs and getting better with OCD, but it's not the end of the world if you are on meds long term. Plenty of people are. It's all about just the quality of life. Could you explain the difference between engaging your thoughts and changing perspective? Well, let's take fear of HIV. I'm not scared of having HIV. I wouldn't like it. I'd do my best not to have it. But if I got it, alas, so be it. It's not the end of the world. I could still live a long life with modern medication. So disputing that belief to see that it's not scary is what changed that idea so that I was comfortable with that. Engaging with the thought would be me going all day long, I'm not scared of HIV, I'm not scared of HIV, I'm not scared of HIV. That would be engaging in the thought. That's the difference. It's one is accepting, one is disputing the irrational belief for a little bit each day to change my perspective, but not engaging consistently with it. Will you ever do a video on POCD? Absolutely. I often talk about POCD, especially in the group chat. I speak about POCD all the time. It's one of the most common themes. I'm struggling to shake the guilt of harm OCD. I've read how to stop and refuse to make yourself miserable, but I'm still finding it tricky to put self-acceptance to use. How can I practice? It takes time and practice. A good place to start is to come to one of our groups or one-to-one sessions, so I can help get under that. There's loads of ways that we do that. The books obviously lay out the theory, but they don't go into to a great amount of detail on OCD specifically, so we help do that. The reason you're feeling guilt is because OCD has intruded with that you've done something, and we need to change your perspective of that having done something and yourself, and that's what we do. Can binge drinking make OCD worse? Well, I used to binge drink a hell of a lot during my bad years with OCD. I never got addicted to alcohol, and I was just doing it because everyone was doing it. Did it make my OCD worse? Yeah, with the hangovers, but not on the nights out. I didn't drink to avoid it, I just drank because that's what we were doing. Do I avoid cutting out binge drinking? Binge drinking's not ideal, but people do tend to do quite a bit of it. If you're doing it to escape OCD, then there's the problem. Otherwise, it's part of, if people do it, it's not ideal, but we take these kind of risks. If you're doing it to avoid the OCD and escape, you've got to be careful, because that can easily set up an addiction cycle, which then becomes a fear of people. What if I become addicted, and so on and so on. So do it balanced drinking. You know, I drink, I go out, I do all these things. I get hungover sometimes. So that's part of life. Or I'm recovered now, but even when I wasn't. So we have to have a balance. Otherwise, people become so scared. Oh my God, I mustn't drink even a thimble of vodka, because that would be terrible, and then it becomes an obsession in itself. Is it normal to feel the thoughts always in the back of your mind just waiting to be triggered? Yeah, because you're still scared of them having a power over you. And because of that, because of your fear that they're going to have a power over you, that's why you're still in your mind thinking about that, and they're raised up, and there's still that sort of element of danger. Whereas if you weren't scared and you'd got over it and accepted it, then it wouldn't be an issue. Rob, you seem a bit irate and defensive. Are you okay today? Yeah, of course I'm okay. I think people think that because I'm posting about coronavirus that I'm not. And do you know why? That's the thing we call in the group. It's called Rob OCD. And do you know what that is? That's a form of OCD that where people are scared that if I'm not better, because then they're like, oh my God, if Rob's not better, then I can never get better. Fear of not getting better. That's a common one. I've accepted my fears, but I feel like I don't want to be a bad person or whatever that label is. Even there's no such thing as a bad person. Right, well, you've got a fear of being a bad person, so you obviously do believe that there's something wrong with being a bad person, and that's the problem. So we need to break down that belief more. Love to get more tips on the fear of insomnia. You posted some story that was really encouraging. Would love to know more. Yeah, well, insomnia is one that I'll cover in a separate topic because there's quite a bit to it. So I'll definitely include that in the next YouTube video, looking at that and breaking that down, because obviously there's quite a lot in that topic. Now, I've got a few videos on sleep. If you go on my YouTube channel, there should be a few on sleep on there, and in Facebook videos. How are you feeling during this virus outbreak? Like I said, I'm pretty fine. Don't think I look particularly bad, like I'm very anxious or anything. There's no other way I can prove that. So, I mean, yeah, I am very fine. I don't really see any problem. I'm about to have some lunch. Can't really notice any difference between day-to-day life before the coronavirus or not. But initially, the first 2 days, I was a bit more concerned, and I did feel a bit anxious at the beginning because obviously the whole world environment was changing. But then once I went over the rational beliefs and had a look at things, it's not an issue. I can't see any reason to be terrified. For me, there's nothing that imminently signs that there would be any reason for panic. Well, there never is a reason for panic. So once you go over rational beliefs, you see that. Let's have a look. Will this be uploaded to YouTube? Absolutely, I upload all these to YouTube. COVID-19 has made my OCD so bad. No, COVID-19 has not made your OCD so bad. Your perspective of COVID-19 has made you feel more anxious, and that's how we work, and it's not an attack on you, it's us attacking our beliefs. Do we get to hear your story sometime? Would be interesting. Absolutely. I cover it in drips and drabs on these Instagrams lives, but I don't like to go into it in too much detail because often it's a comparison game of, did he have this? Did I have that? How long did this take? How long did I have that? I always talk about it in bits, but I try and avoid the whole thing. But I am happy to cover it in sections, and I often do. If you actually look through this page, there's lots of accounts of my journey. How do you deal with the uncertainty of having OCD or not? Well, I don't give a fuck if I have OCD, and I don't give a fuck if it's not OCD. So it doesn't matter either way. Even if I did have HIV, even if I did commit a bad act, I could still accept myself, just like the front of Albert Ellis's book, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything. That is what I have adopted and live by. So it doesn't make a difference to me regardless. How do I let go of the negative thoughts and gain more positivity? Well, as the negative thoughts break down, you become more positive in general. So it's about breaking those down, those irrational beliefs in those. Acceptance is not agreement. Acceptance is acceptance is a seeing and observing, a perspective. Yes, it's not an agreement. I don't agree that stabbing somebody is a good idea or a nice act. I agree it's a wrong act. But under a certain situation in life, I can't say I wouldn't do it, depending on the situation. None of us can say that. We haven't been in those positions or genetically or environmentally to put us in those positions, possibly. But yes, accept the human and dislike the act. I have this fear that I'll never feel entirely happy again. I'm constantly searching for it. Stop searching. Even if you're just like you are and you're just a bit sort of glum, not feeling great, it's not the end of the world. You can still follow on with your life and you can still live your life. It's not awful. It's not terrible. It's just a bit uncomfortable. So you can live with that. If you're chasing happiness, it pulls away from you. If you're chasing anything, if you're chasing to feel in love, chasing to feel sexual enjoyment, anything, it's going to pull away. So it's about just letting whatever be. We can't control the internal weather in our head. First steps of stopping compulsions, being very aware of what the compulsions are doing and keeping you stuck. So how important it is for you to stop them. That's a really good point, because otherwise you'll just tend to keep going round and round because you'll think, it's not that bad to do a bit of this, it's not that bad, and then suddenly you're like fucking hell, I've just spent years doing this, because you haven't noticed it. So you've got to be aware of what exactly you're doing that's keeping it stuck and why that's important to stop. Can body dysmorphia disorder be connected to OCD? Absolutely. They run very close together. What would you say are the top key things you should do when trying to recover from OCD? Read, but then not compulsively over and over, reading for a healthy development and then obviously curbing it back and then doing your work exposures, disputing irrational beliefs and so on, but read at the beginning for sure. Rob, have you heard much about the rare phenomenon that occurs when OCD almost completely subsides and it's only called during adolescence? Well, the reason you're asking this question is obviously some fear that you've got of maybe it coming back or something like that, I imagine. I rarely get anxiety symptoms, and ERP does not give anxiety, but still constant intrusive thoughts. Why? Because you're scared of having intrusive thoughts, or the content of the thoughts still bugging you. If your OCD started suddenly and skewed your perspective of something, will your rationality return when you're again trying to clench back to being rational and being in control, something like that, I imagine. But in relation to, yes, rationality does bring you back, but if that's your fear, then it's about getting used to not so. Why is there a no answer to OCD, like an answer to whatever you're looking for? Because your brain just keeps coming up with a way round, slide around the corner. How should I tell my therapist about POCD? Afraid she won't know what it is and will misunderstand. Most therapists should understand. If they don't, you can always get one who does. It's pretty understood these days. A lot of them don't understand things, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to get arrested for saying you've got OCD thought. It's not going to happen. And accept that maybe you could. So the possibility too, because then you'll be scared of that. Even if you did, well, you could deal with that too. We cover that in great detail in the group sessions and the one-to-one sessions all around the subject of POCD. Okay, guys, I will cover more questions. Everyone's in quarantine, so people are going to be on a lot of these lives with a lot of questions. It's great. Just keep sending these questions along. I will be back on here quite regularly during this quarantine time, doing these Q&As, and I'll answer all your questions. All right, guys, see you later. Bye.